Cyclops is one of the most beloved characters of the Marvel franchise. Born as Scot Summers, he's a mutant with the ability to fire an optic blast from his eyes. He's been through a great deal of character development, whether it's his relationship with his mutant brother Alex, or throughout his heartbreaking tragic love story with Jean Grey, and of course his unbreakable relationship with Wolverine.
You're a dick.
So we've decided we're counting down our picks for the top 10 Cyclops movie moments. Starting off the list, we have Scot saving Wolverine and Rogue. We're starting with the first movie of the X-Men franchise, where we see Storm accompanied by Cyclops rescuing Wolverine and Rogue. When Magneto sends Sabretooth to hunt down Rogue while she's in hiding with Logan, the duo seems trapped as they're attacked viciously by Sabretooth, so much so that Logan loses his consciousness in the fight. At the perfect time, a strong wind blows onto our enemy, following shortly after Scott's optic beam blast. Rogue gets out of the car as Scot once again uses his power to unleash her from the seatbelt, and quickly, just before the big car explosion, he takes Logan off the car, saving his life too. Number 9's another scene from the first X-Men movie. This time, Cyclops and Storm are in the train station trying to save Rogue from falling into Magneto's hands.
You look around. I'll check with the ticket agent.
Storm rushes to the ticket agent to ask for information as Scot looks around. He notices a boy with his mother looking at Scot and admiring his visor. In the meantime, Storm's approached by Sabretooth, who grabs her by the throat. Scot rushes to help, but Toad, who's in the corner clinging to a wall, sends out his long tongue and removes Scott's visor, making him blast his optic beams into the roof. Storm uses this to escape the hands of Sabretooth and hits the feral mutant with the lightning. Number 8's reserved for X-Men Apocalypse, for which director Bryan Singer said, "It's a monster of a movie." This movie is filled with brilliant action sequences, and one of them was the climax of the movie where we see the X-Men assemble to try and stop N'Subanu from fulfilling his plan of destroying the world. Cyclops, along with Beast and Jean, fight off Apocalypse using his full optic blast to try and penetrate his shield. But Apocalypse is too strong and defends himself, even getting the upper hand on Scot by fusing him to a wall. Luckily for our hero though, Beast gets him off the wall and Nightcrawler teleports him to a safe ground on a jet plane. Next up on our list is an awesome moment at number 7 from X-Men Origins Wolverine. Even though this movie has its flaws, one thing it did right was a small but intense scene just before the end of the movie. We see young mutants who were imprisoned at Stryker's mutant prison base, where Scott's powers, along with the rest, were used to power Stryker's deadly weapon 11, the infamous Deadpool. As the young mutants escape the compound, Scot, with the help of Emma Frost and others, uses his powerful optic blast to kill the guards that are shooting at them. As the guards are overwhelmed and taken out by the force coming from Scott's eyes, he asks Emma,
"Did I get him?"
Yeah.
The young mutants are then guided by a telepathic voice in their heads to a passage outside where they meet Charles Xavier, who's waiting for them with a helicopter.
You're safe now. Come, we have to go.
Come on, let's go.
Jean!
Oh, God.
Next up is saving Jean Grey. As our heroes arrive at Liberty Island in order to prevent Magneto's Brotherhood of Mutants executing their plans, we see Cyclops, Storm and Jean fighting off Toad, a frog-like mutant with fast speed, strong legs and a long tongue. Toad gets the upper hand on the trio, successfully throwing them on the floor. Jean tries to stop him, but he incapacitates her by spitting a hardening slime over her face, making her unable to breathe or call for help. So Scot frees himself from the barrier Toad locked him behind and quickly finds Jean, who's frantically trying to get the slime off her face. He calms her down and, setting his visor on low, blasts the slime off her face before she suffocates. Once again, he proves he can be a real asset to the team and that he's always there to support and save his friends and loved ones.
Scott, get me to Jean!
At number 5 we have saving Professor X. Here's an awesome moment from the latest installment of the X-Men franchise, Dark Phoenix. The aliens are trying to get to Jean and are forced to fight the X-Men. As they all show their skills in battle, Professor X tells Scott to take him to Jean to protect her. Cyclops puts one hand around the Professor, the other on his visor, and starts blasting off enemies on his way. A true X-Men Assemble moment, with Cyclops again showing the trust between him and Professor as his guardian.
Who are you talking to?
Me.
I just heard you in my head.
I'm telepathic. I read minds.
Well, stay out of mine.
At awesome number 4 we have a little introduction between characters where Scott meets Charles Xavier and Hank for the first time. Cyclops' brother Alex takes him to the Professor, who's in the middle of one of his lectures. They go out on a lake where Charles persuades Scott to hit the practice target across the lake with his optic beam. Unfortunately for Scott, his powers are too raw to control, and the sheer power of his optic beam hits not only the target practice as he intended to, but also the big tree in the back. Shocked with what they just saw, Hank and Alex are amazed by Scott's potential, while Charles quickly says that tree he just destroyed was planted by his grandfather and was probably his favourite tree.
I think that was probably my favourite tree.
Does that mean I'm expelled?
Oh, on the contrary. You're enrolled.
We start our top 3 with an epic conclusion of the first movie. When Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm and Jean are captured by Magneto, he slams them to the wall in a way that Cyclops' head is pointing at Jean, preventing him from shooting. Sabretooth removes Cyclops' visor, forcing him to close his eyes.
You better close your eyes.
Magneto explains his plan to the group and takes Rogue to the machine on top of the Statue of Liberty. After, Logan finally breaks free and fights Sabretooth, with Scott's visor now in his hands. Jean tells Scott that when she tells him he should open his eyes, then telepathically places the visor over his eyes, and Scott fires at Sabretooth, blasting him through the wall. In an attempt to stop Magneto's machine, Storm sends Logan to Rogue while Scott waits to blast the machine. When Magneto stops Logan again, Scott shoots, blasting Magneto in his machine, saving everyone.
Who's that?
I believe you two met. That's Jean Grey. You bumped into her when you arrived.
Wait, that's her?
Yeah.
Second on the list we have one of the crucial moments of Scott Summers' arc in the X-Men movies, the moment he first meets his future love interest, Jean Grey. The first encounter Jean and Scott had was when Scott's brother Alex was taking Scott to Charles's school for the first time. Being blindfolded to stop his powers, Scott bumps into Jean in the school hallway, knocking over her books. Later, when Scott's given protective glasses from Hank, he finally sees Jean in the garden for the first time. He approaches her and they form a bond. A few students pass by talking suspiciously, making Scott think they're afraid of him. He tells them it's safe now and that he has new glasses, to which Jean replies,
They're not scared of you, they're scared of me. You're not the only one who can't fully control your powers.
And finally at number 1 we have Scott discovering his powers. It's 1983, Scott's in a class and he notices his eyes are starting to bother him, causing discomfort. As he rubs his eyes, a fellow student mistakes this as Scott hitting on his girlfriend.
You waking up my girl?
Scott asks if he can be excused to go to the bathroom. So while he's in the bathroom, Scott's approached by the student who's ready to fight him over the incident. As he begins to slam the door, Scott begs him to leave him alone, but he's persistent, slamming the door again and again, making Scott finally break, unleashing his optic blast from his eyes. So not only did he discover his powers, but everybody else did too. So with that, this list comes to an end. Having been one of the first members of the modern group of X-Men, Scott Summers was chosen to succeed his mentors like Professor X and Wolverine and become the X-Men's field leader, and we can't wait to witness that. So what do you think of our list then? Let us know in the comments section below. Be sure to like, share and subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell to stay in the loop for all of my future uploads. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on the TV Regent.